Rob Smith, host of the Can't Cancel Rob Smith podcast. You can find him on all socials at Rob Smith Online. Rob, you have the Elon Musk Don Lemon interview.
Yeah, so Elon Musk and Don Lemon are now engaged in a catfight after Elon Musk pulls X's support of Don Lemon's new digital show podcast, The Don Lemon Show, after what was a fairly contentious interview that was supposed to launch off the first episode. You guys can play that clip between Don Lemon and Elon Musk. Go ahead and get right to that.
And this did not air on X yet, or is this just the teaser that he's putting out?
This is the teaser that he's promoting. Apparently, this show launches on X on Monday, which, by the way, coincidentally, is when Can't Cancel Rob Smith goes video, and you can find that on youtube.com/Can't Cancel Rob Smith. Hey. But yeah, play the clip. This is Don Lemon.
The trademark laugh there, which, by the way, in the context of the contract is canceled 24 hours after that interview, it just shows there was a lot of back and forth and give and take. What did you take away from his comments on politics?
Well, he says he's not going to endorse anyone now, but he may do it later. He says he's not going to give money to anyone now, but he may do it later. You never know with him. He may, be endorsing someone now on the platform. But, what's interesting to me in all of that and all these questions that, about what people are asking me, what I asked Elon, what happened, what did I do? Yep. During the course of that interview, I never raised my voice. I told him, I think this is important for people to hear, especially considering how the type of discourse that we're having in the country right now. And he supposedly says this is a public square for all. Maybe we're learning that a public square should not be privately owned by someone who doesn't think that there should be any moderation on that platform. So it was interesting because at the end, I could tell that he was upset and he was uncomfortable. It was tense. And I said, listen, I'm not trying to make you uncomfortable. As a matter of fact, I would go and have a beer and hash these things out. You and I do not disagree. You and I do not agree on much. Yep. But I will fight for your right to be able to say what you want to say. That's what freedom of speech means to me.
And 24 hours later, then.
And 24 hours later. It means freedom of speech does not mean, I guess, the same thing to him as it does to me.
Contract is canceled. Don, thank you very much. I appreciate it. I appreciate everyone being able to hear part of these clips. And Don's full interview with Elon Musk comes out on Monday.
That's weird that he was on CNN after he got fired from CNN. Listen, I've been fired on the radio twice. Neither one would allow me to come back on and promote my podcast. Yeah. I was like, hey, I'm host of Unusual Suspects, Cox Radio, Mike Calta. Can I come on? And they'd go get the fuck off of our phone line. Why are you calling us? That's very odd that he was there to promote that.
If you were fighting with Elon Musk, I bet they will get you back immediately.
Okay, well, number one, so he's on CNN to promote this show. He got cashed out by CNN to the tune of something like $20 or $30 million.
$25 million.
$25 million. Yeah. They had to buy out his contract. Unfortunately, so I call him Diva Don Lemon. I don't particularly love Don Lemon. I feel like he would be more interesting if he was just his authentic self. He was more interesting before he sort of became this tool of the left to be super duper anti-Trump. And he's got, Zucker in his earpiece, basically, pulling him on puppet strings. But there's a lot of things that happen in this CNN interview, which I thought was interesting. First of all, he is trying to say that Elon Musk basically pulling the deal to put promotional heft behind his show on X is some sort of cancellation of free speech. That's not cancellation of free speech. What Elon Musk is saying is that I'm not going to put weight behind this content on X anymore. You're still free to publish it on X like everybody else. Like, I'm free to publish Can't Cancel Rob Smith on X at Rob Smith Online. He is free to publish a Don Lemon show, first of all. And second of all, he's trying to say that, well, maybe a company that is involved in free speech shouldn't be privately owned. That's a dog whistle, because I think that what they're going to try to do is to institute this sort of government takeover of X. What I will say is that I personally, people are saying that there's been an increase in hate speech and all this other stuff on X. I've seen the discourse definitely become messier on X in terms of smears and slurs and all that stuff. Like, I've seen it. I get targeted by a lot of these jokers on X, right? So I've seen this stuff. But to say that Elon doesn't believe in free speech because he's not going to put promotional dollars behind my show is very, very disingenuous. And thirdly, the last point that I'm going to make is that a lot of these legacy media players, like Chris Cuomo is apparently doing stuff with Valuetainment now, and a lot of these legacy media players are coming to the digital space and they think that they're just going to recreate CNN online. It doesn't work. I don't think Don Lemon is smart enough to pull it off. And the only person who's truly come to this space and made it work, like Bill O'Reilly's doing some stuff like, who cares? It's not 1998. It's not like whatever.
It's true too. If you've seen the website.
Oh, Bill O'Reilly is going to come after
I watch
me.
him.
Yeah.
The only one.
Yeah. But
My dad does
what I'm
too.
saying is the only person from this legacy media space, I mean, you have Tiffany Cross, who got fired from MSNBC, and now she's trying to have a podcast. So they all kind of do the same things. The reason that a lot of these people are not going to work in the digital space is because it's not cable news on YouTube and it's not cable news on X. It's a completely different thing. The only person that is truly making this work is Megyn Kelly, whose show is fire because she just leans into, I am a journalist. I am going to stick to the facts. That's the only way it's going to work.
Well,
I don't think Lemon's going to work in this space.
But a lot of those people also, don't they have... You've done more mainstream news media than any of us combined.
Yeah.
I feel like a lot of that, when you're doing the interviews, maybe it's not so much scripted, but when you're reading the news, it's written for you. It's on a teleprompter. It's in front of you.
Yes.
But then you watch Megyn Kelly. She does and I don't know how long the radio show is, but I know it's daily on Sirius Satellite Radio. They're not writing out a script for her. Brian Kilmeade did the same thing. You know, that was what Rush Limbaugh was really great at. He was the biggest radio. If you look at his home, it was the biggest home ever purchased in Palm Beach.
Yeah.
There's a reason why. The guy had the gift for gab. There takes a little bit of that. Yes, you can be a good looking face, but you also have to have that gift of gab and that personality.
You have to have it. Let me tell you, I don't know if anybody has ever sat here and done 3 hours of live radio. Buck Sexton is a really good buddy of mine. And when Buck was on the radio in his previous show, I guest hosted for him a couple of times. And I did it like 3 days back to back. And you are on the radio for 3 hours straight. Like, you will get SOTs to go in and out of produce. Like, that's great. But I told him it was the hardest thing I'd ever done. Right? Because it is hard work. And what people don't understand about the cable news space, because I go back and forth between digital and cable news. When you're in a cable news space, what you are talking about and what stories you recover coming from way high, from the executive level. And by the way, that executive level is going to get their cues from whatever it is that, like, whatever they're trying to push. If it's conservative, if it's liberal, whatever, that's where they're taking their cues from. So when you sit on a cable news set, 70% of the work is actually already done for you. And why I don't believe that Don will really work in this space is that I don't think this whole idea of I'm going to sit and have a 2-hour conversation with Elon Musk or whoever, I don't think it plays like people think. And honestly, we've heard a lot from Elon. Like, what you think about Elon is what you think about him at this point, and nothing's ever going to change that. So we'll see.
My question is, if he got so much money and he got bought out by CNN, why isn't he like on an island somewhere enjoying? You know, he just wants to be so relevant. Like,
I know this is going to sound ridiculous.
I would be on an island,
not
away
with $25
enjoying.
million anymore. You got to think, you get a $25 million payday, but the lawyers are going to take a third of that. You have agents and managers.
I don't think.
Look,
you're going to tell me stop it.
End of day,
stop it.
That money was 10 mil. You think that's enough to go away for the rest of your life?
Do you think that's not enough? If you don't think $10 million is enough to disappear forever, I wonder how you deal with your finances.
Maybe it's the way that I think. I'd be living in like a baller mansion. That's what but you can't do that on $10 million. You have real estate taxes.
Okay, stop.
Cable bills.
Stop right now. We are not going to. No, stop the recording. We are not going to live in a space. I am not going to let this slide, Rob. You are not going to tell me.
I don't have $10 million. That's how I go. I would think you need more.
You can. Let me tell you something.
Yeah.
Okay. So I'll make it a little personal and not look. I stepped away from this for like a year and a half. I wasn't doing much because I was like, do I really want to do this? Whatever, blah, blah, blah. Like I investment, like I was doing just fine.
Sure.
And it's not $10 million.
Right.
The average person that is not trying to, I don't know if you're trying to trick off on strippers. Like, I don't know if I don't know if you're trying to get I don't know what kind of life you're trying to live.
Vacation
Probably
you want?
would though if I had
But the
$10.
average person, and by the way, not even the $25 million. Think about the fact that he had a 2-decade-long career. He's a millionaire before that.
Way more
Fair.
than that.
The average person, if PBD walked here right now and was like, hey, Rob, here's $5 million, I'd be good. These socials are being deleted.
Yeah, you step away.
You can live. But he's doing this, not to, I'm
ego.
I'm busting your balls.
No, but so it's ego and relevance.
It's ego and relevance because look, men gotta work, right? And the reason that I came back to start running my mouth and doing all this stuff again is because I was like, well, you can sit here and I can travel and I can go to Europe for a month and I can do all this stuff, but you get bored because men need to work. And I understand that Don is doing this because he needs to work.
Can I dip my toes in the whole? I think Don Lemon is unnecessary. Yeah. I mean,
unnecessary.
It's unnecessary.
I think
so.
Okay.
He won't have. For example, that interview was unnecessary. We all know what he thinks.
Yeah.
He released the second interview, the promotional interview, saying we disagree on a bunch of things. We already knew that, dude. Megyn Kelly, on the other hand, when she left Cable News, she became better.
Yeah.
Because she was able to do things that
she was unleashed.
She was unleashed.
And by the way, Megyn Kelly and Don used to be friends, and now they hate each other. And I'm always I just always think it's so petty when Megyn does these segments on Don. And I had done a segment when he was getting sued for groping the bartender or whatever, and I guess they made that go away. But I did Megyn Kelly show, and I was like, this is so shady and funny that these people used to be friends and they're not anymore, and they just shit all over each other.
It's like a novela.
Media. I love media like catfights.
I don't know. Personally, I want to see Don Lemon fail slowly. I hate that this happened because I want to see Elon supporting him, and then his show slowly falling apart into relevancy. And I couldn't enjoy 2 years of him failing.
Yeah, but he'll hide that. You're not.
Can I ask a serious question? I want to ask a serious question. Does anybody here have a true understanding of the media business and how this works?
Rob,
I really want to ask you.
Rob, I'm sorry, but you're playing an interesting position here where you're both saying that you have this insider knowledge, you know so much, but you also know so much about the average person. So please let us know about
because I was average before, and then I started working in the media industry. So it's I'm saying, literally, no, and I'm going to tell you, and that's fair. Mm-hmm. I've lived on $135 a week, bro. I've been there, right? Mm-hmm. So I know what that life is. And everything that's happened over the past 5 to 7 years have been completely different. So I know these players, I know the business, but I also know what it's like to be broke. And I know what it's like to live on $135 in New York City. So I do. And I get it. Chat, I'm here for it. And I get what you're saying. So I know both sides. And the only reason that I'm challenging you on the Don Lemon failure, when you're that famous, you're famous forever, right? When you have a certain following that will go with you wherever you go, you'll always be able to monetize them. So if they go to if they go to his podcast and he's got sponsors and he got this stuff off the gate, so whether he will remain relevant in that sort of mainstream media space, who knows? But he'll always be the guy that was on CNN for a decade and has all.
Does he have that following though? Did he have I guess we're gonna find that answer out coming.
That remains to be seen.
Because he's been gone. He's been off TV for a year, right? And I haven't heard anything about him until this.
Yeah.
So and there would be. I guess you're waiting for that contract to end, and then the terms of your contract to be over or whatever. There's probably non-compete.
Well, because they had to do everything legally, and he had to figure out what it is, and he probably had non-competes where. The rumor has it that he was trying to go to do the daytime thing, to do CBS This Morning and all this other stuff, and that he was a little too politically polarizing to make that work. Okay. So I am both an insider and a normal person.
Okay,
it's fair.
And that's difficult to find.
Now let me ask you. I would like your opinion on this though. So you mentioned a person that moved from the news space to the digital space, Megyn Kelly being the most successful.
Yeah.
What about your thought? What are your thoughts on Tucker?
My thoughts on Tucker are from somebody that so this is what I think honestly about Tucker. Those were always I feel like Tucker on Fox existed kind of in this bubble that was outside of that Fox infrastructure, right? Outside of that cable news infrastructure. So I feel like he did what he wanted to do. I don't think that he was running things through executives before he did it. Mm-hmm. So I think that it's been a little rocky, Tucker's transition to digital. I don't want to say that he's less relevant than he was before, because he'll always be relevant, because he'll be relevant because he's doing journalism. But I have seen like some stuff goes places, some stuff doesn't. So he's just like figuring it out. And I think that when Tucker became Tucker, truly, honestly, was during 2020, because he was doing reporting and he was doing things that nobody else was doing. And I think that there's not the space in this moment for him to be relevant in that way, because now there are a lot of people that are doing a lot of more in-depth reporting about a lot of different things. Like Tucker's always going to be Tucker. I think as a journalist, he's great. I don't like every single thing that he does. Like having that like he's starting to have like these Twitter trolls on there, like whatever. He's still trying to figure it out. But when he cracks the code and really gets it, it's going to be phenomenal.
Okay. Shane?
I would agree with that. I think Tucker really had a very unique space occupied during Fox, because he was a Fox News anchor, most watched on the most watched cable news network, talking about narratives from the internet that no one else was talking about on cable. Right. Now he's on the internet talking about internet narratives. So it's not really anymore that same unique, holy grail that he rode to the top with. But I think what I saw was interesting with his Cuomo interview recently was him going into architecture and saying that postmodern architecture is like a spiritual poison. And Cuomo was like, what are you talking about, dude? He's like, you really think that like architecture like operates on that level? And Tucker's like, oh, absolutely. And that was a Tucker that I would like to see more of.
Yeah, the clip's actually really good, because he explains how the modern architecture takes away the creative aspect of designing buildings, and that comes from the human aspect. Yeah. A person builds that, they design it, they build it with their hands. It's an extension of humanity. Whereas these cut and dry, this looks like this, put this up. But yeah, so yeah, it was a really
Twitter
interesting
conversation that is represented visually on Twitter, like very beautifully a lot.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think Tucker, while he's been in this kind of, fired state for the last couple of years, he's been doing a lot of reading, because there was also a speech that he gave in Hungary where he talked about this book that he was currently reading about the Bolsheviks when they were overthrowing Russia. And he said that everyone was acting like nothing was going on. Like there would be like a play going on in a playhouse. And then just outside, there's just revolutionaries going everywhere and like holding people up at gunpoint and robbing them. And I'm like, Tucker, like, what books are you reading, dude? Like, what I want from Tucker is a show that's just him and the camera for an hour just talking about his thoughts. Because I think he's at that point now where he's kind of like a philosopher at this point.
He's like an elder statesman. Like, he doesn't have to break any more news. Exactly. You know what I mean? Like, he doesn't have to be relevant, quote unquote.
I don't know. I'm a big fan. His hair is a business.
It is pretty nice.
Are you talking about Bill O'Reilly, or are we talking about Tucker Carlson? Okay.
I don't know. And he has some segments. He will bring this Chinese lady that is in a school board, and he will tell her really good stories. He's not like a big name, but he's making a point. And then he'll go interview Putin, and everything in between. I think he's coming on his own.
Keep the interviews, but I feel like he could, have a show like that in addition to the crazy interviews.